Go ahead and get started. My name's Jeff Goldhagen. I'm a pediatrician here in Jacksonville, Florida, and have the privilege of being the current president of the International Society for Social Pediatrics and Child Health. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we've been in existence for well over 40 years. And are the only group of global pediatricians interested and focused on social pediatrics and advancing children's rights. The issues that we deal with are the global social and environmental determinants of health. And over the last few years, we've been focused on issues related to immigration and children on the move and impact of violence on children. And this year, we're focusing, and we'll do so over the next couple years, on issues that are of fundamental importance to us all related to climate change. And for those of you who are here for the first time, this is the third in a series of 8 sessions that will focus on different aspects of climate change. And the first 2 sessions, as well as this, will be recorded and are on our YouTube channel. And so we'll make sure that all the registrants gain access to that. And we'd also call your attention to our declaration on climate change, which we are using as the framework for our response. It would be inappropriate not to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. And so this really is a wonderful coincidence that we're having this session on Earth Day. I'm going to turn this over now to Eva, who will be moderating today's session. But before I do, I just want to thank you all for participating. I want to thank our ISOP Scientific Committee for their work in putting this series together. Thank Eva for her organization and the leadership for this season of sessions, and then Miguel, who has flawlessly provided the technical support for the sessions. Miguel and I and Rita are with the University of Florida, and we need to thank the University of Florida for allowing us to use their platform, even though they don't know we're using it, but we'll thank them anyway for it. So without taking up any more time, let me turn this over to Eva.
All right, thank you, Jeff. As Jeff said, my name is Eva Goldhagen, and I work for ISOP. And I wanted to thank you all for being here today. As Jeff mentioned, it's a uniquely relevant day for discussion on climate change, as it's Earth Day. So I just wanted to take the time to remind everyone of the importance of the work that we're doing today in this webinar and every day. And also encourage you all to check out earthday.org, where they have a variety of presentations in celebration of this year's Earth Day, including a global youth summit, which I think you may all find particularly interesting. But with that, we'll go ahead and get on to our own youth discussion. I want to go ahead and start with a brief overview of today's webinar. For those of you who have been to the previous 2, it's a bit of a different format. For today, we are lucky enough to have 4 youth representatives who have agreed to participate in a panel discussion regarding climate change and child health. The way today's going to go is we're going to begin with a brief presentation from each of the representatives, where they'll introduce themselves, their organization, their work, etc. Then we'll go into a panel discussion where we'll hear from the youth representatives more specifically about climate change issues, the impact on children and youth, and child health professionals' roles in engaging in the issue of climate change. After that, then we'll go and open it up to a Q&A to give you all the chance to ask the youth representatives any questions you may have on these topics. And then following that, we'll go into our breakout sessions. Miguel's going to put a brief slide after the Q&A to describe specifically how the breakout rooms will go, but they are designated by regions, so you'll be able to go ahead and join whichever room you all like. And this gives you the opportunity to discuss amongst yourselves and with the youth representatives what was discussed in this portion, and to engage with each other on a more intimate and local basis. The breakout rooms have been a really large contributor to the success of our first 2 sessions, so we really hope you will all be able to stick around and participate. But for now, we'll go ahead and get started with the brief presentations. As I said earlier, we have 4 youth participants today. We have Katarina Bittendorf representing Plant for the Planet. We have Mira Madsen representing Fridays for Future out of Denmark. We have Julia Lazzarini representing Youth Climate Leaders. And we have Carolina Fabianova representing Youth and Environment Europe. After the webinar, we'll go ahead with the YouTube link. We'll go ahead and set the link to their organization's websites as well, in case you want to get a better understanding and engage with them further. But I'm going to allow them to give a more formal introduction. So we can go ahead and start with Katarina. Katarina, are you ready?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Katarina and I'm an ambassadress for Plant for the Planet. We call ourselves climate justice ambassadors, and that's because we're fighting for climate change, or fighting against climate change, in better words. So we are a worldwide active network from youth and young people all over the world who want to fight against it together. So we are planting trees. We have no time to wait for politicians and all those important people to get active, as they're always promising in giving speeches and so on. So we do it ourselves. We plant trees. And we do it worldwide. We have like our own land to plant trees in Mexico, and we are originally from Germany, as I am too. But we also focus on spreading our message, because it isn't worth or it isn't enough to talk about it. We have to do. We call our campaign "Stop Talking, Start Planting," and that is kind of our thing. What we do. We want not to talk about it. Of course, it's important, and we want to raise awareness for it. But it's also more important to plant trees to become active. And we further we tell children to do the same. Worldwide, we held academies that are kind of one-day workshops where we train children about the climate crisis. What is it? What is CO2? What can you do about it? How the thing works? What is causing the problem? And how we can solve it? And want to empower them to do the same, to give speeches, to plant trees, and become active against the climate crisis. And we also have a best way to do so: eating chocolate. We have the good chocolate. I don't know if it's available worldwide. I would say no, but in Europe it's spread widely, and also in other regions. And with eating chocolate, you can plant trees, 5 like chocolate bars, and you plant 1 tree. So while eating sweets, you can do easily save the world. And we also have an app to plant trees, because we know it's kind of difficult to plant trees. You don't have probably so much land, especially when you're living in bigger cities. And so we have like a kind of a platform for tree planting organizations worldwide that they can join and like publish their project, and people can donate to them and plant trees easily. So you can just grab your phone and plant a tree, for example, in Mexico, but also on the Philippines. So that was kind of a short introduction in our work. Myself, I'm an ambassador since I was 11 years old. And I'm from Germany, and I'm really happy to present Plant for the Planet today. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move on to Mira.
Yes, just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Which I've been for about a year now. I'm 17 years old and I'm in my last year of high school, and I live in Odense, where I'm also part of the local group. Yeah, now what is Fridays for Future? Fridays for Future was founded in 2018 by Greta Thunberg, who school striked in front of the Swedish parliament. And this started this huge global movement. And the first Danish strike was in November of 2018, and we've had many since then. Our members are between the age of 10 to 25, and we have over 200 active organizers in Denmark. But many more people attend our strikes, especially before COVID. Worldwide, we're more than 14 million, so it's great to be part of such a large international organization. We represent nearly every country in the world, and even though they might not all participate in every single strike, we have an international community to exchange ideas and plan events and so much more. Now, what do we do? FFF is famous for the school strikes, and we still have a group of people in Copenhagen striking in front of the Danish parliament every single Friday. However, we do a lot more. For instance, we do political activism. We have meetings with politicians, we write proposals alongside other Danish climate and student organizations. And we also do webinars and presentations, and these are to educate both primary, middle, and high school students about the climate crisis, to inform them about the things that they can do to make a difference. And in addition to this, we also often invite politicians or organizations or experts to present their projects and ideas so we can stay updated on the newest climate initiatives. We also participate in the daily debate, whether it's a verbal debate on TV or radio, or it's a written op-ed in a newspaper. We aim to remind people of the ongoing crisis, especially when they've become too focused on something else. Now, the demands of Fridays for Future Denmark or Fridays for Future in general, is to keep the global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius, and this is compared to pre-industrial levels. And then it is to listen to the best united science currently available, follow the Paris Agreement, and ensure climate justice and equity. Now, how can you help? Well, in Fridays for Future, we have some issues. One of them being motivation, because fighting for climate justice is hard, especially when you spend so much time and energy on something that might not even make a difference because politicians can decide something else. It's also a lack of ethos, because in many debates, a common argument used against us is that we're too young and should just go back to school and come back when we're able to vote. Another issue is systemic change, because the climate movement is fighting for a change in the system. Even though this includes the individual, it's not what's most important. If you go vegan, that's great, you are supporting the climate movement, but you can't stop large companies from letting out a lot of CO2 on your own. Then there's also education. Many people are unaware of the future and current fatal consequences of the climate crisis, and we aim to teach as many as possible about this. And we also want to teach them how to become a climate activist, because you can be a climate activist in many different ways, as long as you fight for a change. Now, thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions that won't be answered here tonight, you can feel free to contact me on the 2 Instagram handles or on my email. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We will continue on with Julia.
Hello, I'm Julia. I'm from Brazil. I have a bachelor degree on business administration from Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, Federal University of Minas Gerais, and I have also I'm also certificated by Sciences Po Lille on political science study certificate. So today I work with cultural transformation, and I'm here representing youth climate leaders. So I'm going to share with you a little about youth climate leaders, UCL, as we call it. So the UCL was created by 4 Brazilian women, and the goal of UCL is to offer solution for young people to tackle young people to tackle the 2 main challenges we have today. We have in this century, that is to tackle climate crisis and also the structural unemployment. I'm sorry, my lights are not that well. And the big goal of UCL is to accelerate 1 million careers. So we have 3 pillars to work in this, to attain these goals. And the first pillar is what we call learning journeys. And we have courses, immersions, workshops to teach people about crisis, climate change, to teach about leadership. Another pillar we have is our networking. Today we have a quite active 150. We are in 20 countries in 3 continents, and that is what we call a concrete opportunity. And in this pillar we have job openings, so we are always sharing job opportunities in the field of climate crisis, and we have another action that is a mentoring program, and we have another action that is we give opportunity to people to be part of delegations in global events such as COP, such as C40 Summit, New York City Climate Week. So we give opportunity to people to be in these events. So overall, the mission of UCL is to train, to connect, and to create opportunities to young people to accelerate their careers and lead actions to tackle climate crisis. And our values is to always act based on science, keep learning, and we have this very strong mindset of intergenerational collaborations and work with courage and really focus on the solution of the problem. So these are our values, and today we have 13 hubs around Brazil, and we have 3 hubs abroad. And yes, that's UCL, and if you have more doubts, we have time to talk about it. And thank you very much to call us to be here with you, and I'm also very glad to be here represent UCL. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we have Carolina Fabianova.
Hi, thanks, Eva. Thanks for having me again, and happy Earth Day to everyone. It's a pleasure. So I would like to share my screen for the slides, just a second. Okay, can you see now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Carolina and I'm from Slovakia, but I work as a project and communications manager for Youth and Environment Europe, which is the organization that I represent, and we are the largest independent European network of environmental youth organizations. So our mission is to unite these organizations in order to fight climate change. And we are doing that by raising awareness and building capacity among young people on the climate crisis, by enhancing the cooperation between these organizations and knowledge sharing, and by strengthening the participation of young people in decision and policy making processes. So these are the 3 core objectives that we have. We have currently 52 members, which are in Europe, as we are focused on Europe as a continent, but that goes beyond the EU. So we have organizations from Georgia, Armenia, or Ukraine, and they're in 30 countries currently. And as I said, we are providing them a platform to cooperate, but we are also an organization ourselves to have our own projects. So how we work is that we work by youth, with youth, and for youth. So all our members are under 30 years old. And our organization is a member of the United Nations Environment Programme and other organizations like an umbrella organizations such as European Environmental Bureau, that we are connecting our members with the decision makers and politicians and other senior figures from these organizations. We are also co-founding member of other organizations such as Generation Climate Europe, and we are also partners with other stakeholders. Our headquarters is in Prague in Czech Republic, but we are operating all over Europe. So you can see just few of our projects and campaigns. So we are focused on providing young people an opportunity to participate in training courses, webinars, workshops, and youth dialogues that we are connecting them with the decision makers, and we are doing like an advocacy, a political advocacy this way. So here are also some events and campaigns. So we have different awareness raising campaigns. As you can see, there's the EU for Ocean, which was focused on the raising awareness on the ocean literacy. Then we are doing different events such as cleanup in our organizations and youth dialogues that we have about Arctic with WWF. And the most important part of our work is advocacy. We have our advocacy team and advocacy officers who are focused on the different and engage with different organizations or on different subjects like in Arctic. Or then we have also a member who is the member of the Youth UN Advisory Group to the General Secretary of United Nations. And by this means, we are developing different policy papers and opinions and really giving the voice of young people directly to the politicians and decision makers. So we are making sure that they are heard and we are connecting them by this way. So that was about YE, and I would be happy to tell you more later or to collaborate if you would be interested. I'm happy to answer all the questions. And thanks again for having me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for those presentations. They were extremely informative. And with that, we will go ahead and get started with our panel discussion. I'll go ahead and present a question, and then you all can go ahead and respond as you see fit. Hopefully, we'd love to hear each of your voices on the different questions. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with, what are the child health issues or problems that you think relate most to the climate crisis? Would anyone like to start?
I can start. If nobody else wants. So, of course, due to all the consequences that the climate crisis brings with it, we have extreme weather conditions, and as a result, and from this are caused injuries, but also like hunger and devastation of harvest, which can cause to health issues and problems worldwide, but especially in poorer regions, like in the southern countries that can't afford to protect themselves, protect the children, especially for those. If you take like European countries, they also have the money, and the EU protects them, can build some barriers at the sea that the ocean can't come to the country or anything, but poorer countries didn't have like a possibility to do that. And also there are more allergies and respiratory diseases such as asthma, and they are seen already also in Germany as far as it was told me. And also infectious diseases are more frequent. For example, malaria is spreading over new regions, and which causes also trouble and health problems, and this affects also a lot of children. So we have like different consequences that are forced or the result of the climate crisis. And together with that, the climate crisis will lead to big migration, but also people have to leave their homes and countries to go to another place because of floodings or like recent bushfires and so on. And this will also have like huge consequences for especially children, like the young ones who can't protect themselves. So that's my.
Great. Would anyone else like to comment?
Yeah, if I may follow up, I agree with Katarina. I also wanted to highlight that I think the consequences of climate change on health are very specific to the localities and to locations. So there are different consequences in Europe and there are different consequences in other continents. But definitely what we see right now is air pollution. I would talk about Europe as that's what's we are working on, and that's what I specify. And so the air pollution is huge, and there are dying people in Europe already on the health pollution as well. So I think that's one of the really big one. Then the extreme weather is also, I think, causing maybe not the visible health issues, but also for the future, it's increasing the cardiovascular failure from the extreme heat and stuff. So there are a lot of health issues there, very like specific to different locations. And I would like to mention that what we talked about recently at one of our webinars was the concept of planetary health, which means basically that the humans or the people would be only healthy if the planet is healthy. So that was the link in between the health of the planet and the health of human civilization. So we cannot be healthy if our planet is, the emissions that we are using and the emissions that are in the atmosphere are just as bad for the planet, just as for us. And actually for the young people and children is even worse, because the consequences will show up and will arise in the future, maybe if we don't see them right now. So I think this concept of planetary health is very, very important to like recognize the link between the health of the planet and to really start acting and to bring this like holistic approach, because there's really many consequences. And maybe what I would like to mention again is that there's also a mental health consequences, which we are seeing a lot, especially right now when we are working with young people. They have like eco-anxiety is real, and they are like worrying about the future. And there's a lot of I would say the impact on the mental health of young people is also recognizable. And I think that's something that should be talked about more as well. So thanks.
Thank you. Those were some great points. Mira, Julia, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next question?
Actually, I agree with everything everybody said, and maybe just adding or just summing up what has been said, because we said about air pollution, food scarcity, biodiversity, soil loss, housing, clean water, increasement of pandemics, climate migration, unemployment, mental health problems, and then all of that to say that we really need to have a systemic view of everything we cause, every impact we have in our planet. So every single thing we do, we are impacting something. So it's always about thinking what is the impact of the things we consume, because we live consuming everything we do. We are all the time we are consuming something. Right now we are consuming energy, we are consuming computers, and then I think it's very important to have the systemic view about the climate change. So that's my contribution for this question.
Thank you. Mira, do you have anything to add, or should we go ahead and move on to the next?
You can go ahead.
Sure.
They made great points.
Okay, great. So moving off of that, what action would you like to see pediatricians or child health professionals take on the climate crisis?
So I can start with this one then. I would like to see you stand with the climate movements and show support, either if it's by attending, whether it's by attending strikes or donating money to research, or by listening and discussing with your friends, family, or children, or as well as children who come to you for medical help, and talk to them about it, because especially like Carolina mentioned, the mental health aspects of climate change are very real, and burnout is very, very real as well.
Maybe, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, thank you.
If I can add, then I would say that like in a daily life, I would definitely like to embrace this connection with the nature and this concept of the health that I was mentioning before, which is like to reconnect people with nature in a daily life. And then on the bigger picture and support the movement and support the climate movement by actually doing what we are doing right now. I think that's a great first step, but also like participate in different debates or dialogues to connect with take the initiative and connect with young people to hear them out, and not just what we see a lot is something that we call youth tokenism, which is that these organizations or politicians just like take that they involve young people, when actually then someone might come speak, but that's it, and it doesn't lead anywhere, or it doesn't like have a bigger impact. So that's something that we are also trying to highlight right now, to really bring something tangible and valuable to the table and organize a discussion and make a policy statement out of it, or recommendation or research, and to continue the collaboration and deepen the collaboration, and not just like have the young people on the picture and that's done, because often it ends there, but that's not the right thing to do. So I think by supporting and even developing projects with young people, providing them with maybe funding opportunities to get involved in this sector it's great. So there is a lot of opportunities, I would say. It's just about the initiative.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I want to add to your point that especially children have to be in contact with nature, and they have to play as much outside as possible and to get a feeling for it, because when you love something, you won't destroy it as we do today. And also they can plant some trees if they're outside. And together with that, it's important, maybe you can as also as part of your job to explain children the importance of a balanced diet. Like eat less meat. It's especially good for yourself, but also for our planet. But also especially for young children and small children, to go not to extremes, because of course when you go vegan, that is good for the planet. It helps a lot, and it's also good for the animals, but it's not so good for the children. So we have to find like kind of a balanced way to go through it, and to have like the best for both sides.
That's very great, Katrina, because it's what I was going to say. I think some short-term impact that's very strong is about diet. If you think about vegetarian diet, here I'm talking about from Brazil. I'm here in Brazil. To be vegetarian is not as common, for example, as in Europe. So I think it's something that we don't talk a lot, and it's very associated to be healthy when you eat meat. So here we still hear a lot about it. So it's even harder to have a vegetarian diet for children. So this is very, very great point. And another point, just adding, because the other girls, they said that already, but this association of pediatricians, doctors, to get this association push climate agendas with medical health agendas and relate them with public health agendas. Here in Brazil, for example, I think I've never seen publicity from the government talking about climate change. And of course, I've never seen relating to health. So I think this could be a big path when we think about awareness. So that's my point.
Great, thank you. Sort of bouncing off of what you guys have just spoken about, how would you recommend that child health professionals work together with children and young people? And to combine that, how do you think ISOP specifically could collaborate with young people and young people's groups on the topic of climate change and child health?
Okay, if I may go, then I would start with what I said before, that this is a great first step. So something like this, it's totally valuable for us to be able to speak with you and to participate. But then it's also great to get further in that. And what we see is that different networks or organizations, what they are doing is, if they have some sort of like advisory board in their organization or something in the structure, it's great to have young people there. It's great to have like one representative who can actually be taken on board, and this representative can like support the voice of young people in your organization on a regular basis. So not just like one-time event, but to really have someone on the board for some time. I think that's a great way on how we can collaborate, and then also just develop different projects, campaign, and work together. That's also a great way.
I very much agree about either collaborating or having a board member that is part of the youth. And doing events like this today is a great start because it's important to acknowledge that the climate crisis is not only an issue that one generation needs to solve. It's not the young generation who should have all the responsibility. However, it's not only for adults, because young people do have new inputs and points of views that people might not, or that might not be acknowledged if they are not there to speak what they see.
Great. Katarina, Julia, anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that what Mira said before, that's usually, I mean, for your cases that they tell you to go back to school or something. So I think this is also a huge barrier in our mindsets, that maybe we don't have the 10 years experience on our CV, but like we are living the life as well, and we care about the future. So I think that's also a huge power of young people, that they're motivated and they often have great ideas. And we see this barrier that just because we are young, people have the tendency to not take us that seriously. So I think that's also something that we should overcome. And I see that it's happening and it's getting better. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I also want to add that you are kind of like a huge group out of experts for child health, and so you have kind of a lot of power in this like area to raise awareness for it. Like go to like, of course, the parents and talk to them, but also to politicians and people in power who make those decisions, and raise awareness for like the consequences of their decision for like the people, the children in their country, but also worldwide. Because I think no politician wants to be claimed that they are like making decisions that risk like the health of children, especially. So that is like kind of a powerful instrument to raise awareness and become active against the climate crisis. And but also you can make this topic, it's like a huge topic and very difficult, especially for smaller children to understand. But you can make it like easily understandable for children and show them how with like tiny steps in their daily routines they can do something to fight against the climate crisis. If it's just eating less meat like one day in a week, so and bring it to their attention. So that would also be something I would highly recommend to you.
Just adding to what the girl said, I was talking here for the children. I was exchanging with people from Youth Climate Leaders. I'm not sure if he's here, Danilo, and he's from an institute that's called Alana, and another institute that's called Health and Sustainability Institute, and he works for climate change with the lens of children. And he was talking to me about when to talk to children about climate change, and also like all these mental health preoccupations. So I think, just adding to what the girl said, I think this is something that is also good to be in mind, to learn about it, how to talk, when to talk, and of course partnering with the movements, the projects, schools, universities. I think that's my point.
Great, thank you so much. I want to start to get into some of the questions that chats have been sent in, because there's been some really great questions. For those organizations which work across many countries, where do you think that there is the greatest respect for the views of young people, and where less good?
I can
go on. No, go on.
Okay. Well, Fridays for Future is a very, very large and global movement. So I noticed that especially here in the Scandinavian countries and just in the European countries in general, there are more respect than there is generally in the global south. Yeah, so that's to my benefit, I would say, but sadly, we don't see the climate change like problems at the moment in the global north.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that since I'm also like focused on Europe, even within Europe, it's a little bit different because, as you said, Mira, Scandinavia and especially Western Europe is more advanced and developed in this sense. And there is a lot of opportunities to engage with young people. Whether we see in Eastern Europe, it's not that developed yet. And also when you go to the Balkans or across that direction towards Turkey, that's also a little bit behind. So I think there is also this difference between Europe. Usually the countries who are like leading on this agreement, the Paris Agreement, or the countries that are strong and they're already committed, like the Netherlands, for example, they have a better engagement with young people, which is also then increasing the inequalities, obviously, as Mira said.
Yeah, I totally agree. As also being a European, I can totally agree with that. But I also wanted to add that people, or especially in Germany, where I have a lot of like experience with that, people like tend to listen to you and say, "Oh yeah, that's great that you are doing that. You're doing it in your free time, wonderful." And then all the like things that you said about changing your life, making another decision as a politician, it just falls apart and it's just, oh, you're doing something in your free time, that's great, and and the rest is forgotten. But also as a like international organization, we can tell that we have like Europe, it's good and people like support it. It's harder in Asian states, especially in states like Russia or China. That's like not so good. But we also have a lot of people from India or Nepal, where it's like they're really active and they're really doing a great job there. Also from the Philippines, where they're really active. Of course, they have like kind of a hard environment because they cannot relate on the government to support them as we can here in Europe. We have some governments who support our work, or at least say it's okay or it's great that we're doing it. Like also the government of Canada. It's not Europe, but it's another government who it's like willing to see that it's like great work. In the United States, it differs, but it can be also hard. I think in Latin America, maybe Julia is the expert there, but I would say they are also really like widespread and doing a lot of work there. And in Africa, it depends really on the states. We have some states like Cote d'Ivoire, where it's like really good. They are doing so much work there and they are so active. And other states where it's kind of hard to do it. And to mention the last, it's like New Zealand, Australia, it's like Europe, or New Zealand even really good. It's really fantastic there. But yeah, so that would be yeah, my point of view.
Great, thank you. There were a few questions sort of touching on this, but regarding striking the right balance. So listening to children and young people, but not putting so much expectation on them, and sort of if you all would be willing to comment or speak on that.
I think then to sort of keep up the balance is really important to empower them, the young people, to not just like give the good feedback or have it like a two-sided way collaboration or communication. And I think that's like showing us the feedback that we can receive and that it's not putting our the expectations high. But from my experience, I can tell that young people that we are working with are very motivated and passionate. So they rather see this as opportunities to collaborate than some burden. So it's not that I think in their point of view, it's not seen like that.
Would anyone else like to comment?
Yeah, I also can underline this point. The most people, like, we are trying to empower or train people, or especially young children, and they're mostly like really committed to that. They're really enjoying the day, of course, but they're learning a lot, and they're sometimes shocked how the world really is. They are like mostly young children from Europe. They're expecting the world to be everywhere the same, like everywhere like they knew it from their hometowns. And so they are kind of shocked when we explain them in kind of a game how it really is, how like where are the most people living and where the money is, where who is like the most produces most of the CO2 and so on. So they're really committed, but I think they are kind of get frustrated by like when they are also like blocked every single time when they try something. So that's maybe like a thing also.
Maybe if I just may add to this one as well, is that the lowering the expectations or the burden is also, as we were discussing before, this is not just a climate issue, it's a systematic issue. So then it's very related to youth employment. So when people have some sort of better quality education or jobs, then they have more time to think and to act on climate change. Whether we see a lot of young people struggling and coming from the like most vulnerable communities, and these people cannot get that engaged. So what is behind is not just to directly engage with young people, but to kind of fight against this whole systematic approach that is happening right now, and to decrease the inequalities and to support young people in also other parts of their life, not just in the climate activism, but to provide them with a good quality education, jobs, and some sort of self-development opportunities, so they have more capacity and time to act on climate change.
Great point. Thank you so much. Something that seems like a lot of people are interested in knowing is sort of the moment when you became committed to this work, when you became interested in it, and when were you able to become committed? Maybe we could start with Mia or Julia.
Eva, could you please repeat? I have some problems with my internet connection.
Sure. Essentially, just when you became interested in committed in this work.
Since when did I start to be committed with this work?
Sure, and what got you involved? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so actually, it's very personal question answer for me, because I was a business administration student, so I never thought I could actually work with climate. We didn't really talked about that here at the time. I started university in 2013, and then I went to France, and then I studied at Sciences Po Lille, and there people were talking a lot about climate change. I met many people that were vegetarian as me because of climate change, and this was not really common around my people I would relate with. And then there I decided I would work with climate, and then I did an internship when I come back to Brazil in a company that's called Way Carbon. It's a pioneering company here, that it's a consulting company, and all the projects, all the product is it's related to climate and sustainable development. And then I did this internship there, and then the company offered me the course at Youth Climate Leaders. So I was in the first class that they opened here in Brazil, and it was when I started to be more active in this youth movements. So it was how it arrived. But then I also worked a little bit in Europe. I worked for 6 months with climate change and ocean protection in Europe. So that's my relation with the team.
So my story is a bit different, not as cool, but it was last year, just in the first lockdown. My local group kind of shut down because nobody wanted to do anything virtual, because you sat in front of a screen and had school all day anyways. So my friend reached out to me and knew that I'd been interested in doing climate activism with Fridays for Future before, but I just hadn't had the time, and then asked me to restart the local group, which I then did, and then I really, really enjoyed it, working with these people and seeing something happen and creating these strikes and events. So I joined the national team as well, and then later on the international.
Should I go ahead?
Sure, yes, please.
Okay. So for me, I would say that I'm coming from Slovakia. So I was, since I was a kid, I was very close to the nature, and that's like my parents, how they brought me up. So the nature was like always a huge aspect of my life. And then I went to uni and I studied international development, which was kind of opening for me because it opened my eyes really, because I started to learn about developing issues and about the countries and the other regions of the world. And then I actually went to Ghana and I did the internship there on the water and sanitation hygiene project. And that for me was kind of like, I saw the situation, I was like, this is not fair how we are living. And I was like, I'm gonna change the world to make it a better place. So that was for me very inspiring. So it was my studies more or less.
Yeah, when I was 11, we had a teacher in school who was kind of not so interested in teaching us really. So he put us just in front of a computer and say, yeah, just Google some stuff and yeah, then you can go home. And yeah, we should Google for like environmental theme stuff. And we first like Googled like in German, but then I gave in like plant. So then the Plant for the Planet website was like open to me, and then I found that there was a kind of an academy. So the day where we trained children nearby my house, or yeah, nearby the place I lived, and so it sounded very interesting and fun. So yeah, I came home and begged my mom to go there. She was first like no, because she didn't know this organization and thought I was just too small to do it. But in the end, obviously won, and I went there. And yeah, so I don't know what happened this day. I do not remember it really, but I was like really fascinated by it, and all the things I learned there. And yeah, and then they invited me to give some speeches afterwards to like on academies too, to other children, but also like on other events to adults. And the first speech was completely messed up. There was like a totally different presentation than the one that was shown by the PowerPoint. And yeah, but it was fun, and so I stayed, and so I like grew up in this organization kind of. So yeah, now I'm also training children, and like I was trained kind of 9 years ago. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
Thank you. We probably only have time for one, maybe two more questions. So here's one. I understand that there is climate anxiety among youth and children. In my experience, psychiatry, it is not given much attention. Do you have ideas about how to communicate the level of fear that young people experience when you think about the future? Do you think that making this more visible would add to the sense of urgency needed to move to action? So basically that, or any comment on the, which we've referenced before, but the involvement or the of mental health issues with climate change.
Okay, I can start, and I think it's definitely helping to talk about that, to raise awareness. I think that's a huge aspect, because sometimes then, especially during the pandemic, when we fall into isolation, it's like people could think that they are alone in this when actually they are not. So just providing that aspect that we are in this together and talk about it and raise awareness that it's okay to not feel okay sometimes. It's, I think, very important. And how to talk about it is, I think it's very sensitive topic, definitely, but to also give some reassurance and this support, it's also very important. So I don't really know how to specifically communicate that, but I know that this aspect of support and being in this together is very important, and just even talking about it helps. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also would say that making it visible, it also helps like the people that suffer from it. But on the other side, it also helps kind of the movement, because when there's like a lot of pressure because a lot of people have this is like, it's not a good thing, but also this thing that it comes kind of naturally, that it can help us to bring us forward, because no one can like make rules or just don't act, and so much people are having this, are suffering from it, and when it's like really obvious to the public, so then more people, I think, would yeah, kind of join the movement, or like speak out to it and want to have change. So that can also help in some way.
Here in Denmark, we like mental health is not necessarily taboo, but it's not something that's very much talked about. So in the national Fridays for Future group, we have initiatives to like just have Zoom meetings where you sit and talk with people, or you cook, or you watch a movie, and yeah, if you just sit and talk, you talk about your feelings, your fears, your hopes and dreams, because just being able to talk about these feelings is very, very important. And it would be very nice to have adults who support this, but it's not. If you have climate anxiety, it's usually not something you go to therapy for. So having your friends from the local organizations are very important too. But it would be great if there was an increased focus on it.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and squeeze one more in. What has been your experience in accessing government leaders to advocate for climate? Do you feel heard by adult leaders? And how can we support you in amplifying your voice?
I can start on this one. The last election here in Denmark was very, there was this called like the Green Mandate. It was a climate election, but not much has been done, or not, the children haven't been listened to after the election. So it was just, you know, a facade or a social media stunt to get more votes. And this is terrible, because I know getting a meeting with a politician is hard enough in itself, but you know, actually getting them to advocate for you in the parliament is a whole another story.
I'm just representing Brazil here. I think you all can imagine that we have a big challenge here with our presidency. And of course, at this election, we had really a big problem with environmental issues and social issues, because of this the attention the elected people had for these issues. So here in Brazil, I don't think we can say that we feel heard, the climate activists. And how you could support, just to not be that repetitive, is I think it's associating with other pediatricians and pushing agendas and relating climate agendas with public health agendas and medical agendas.
Yeah, so from our experience, we could tell that it differs not only through countries, but also to like local governments and like the state government. Local governments, they are more friendly. They are all like mostly, they are really enjoying to help us, or like, yeah, prove or like say that the city would plant like such an amount of trees or some numbers, and they really do it. And so that's really great. So we work a lot with different like local governments, but state government is another problem. So some of them, like I mentioned before, the Canadian government, they're really like taking us as an example, because they want to have like also a huge tree planting activity. And other governments are really like against us, kind of. It feels at least like this. So it differs. So sometimes we feel that we are heard, and sometimes it's just, yeah, okay, you are talking, but it's not important for us, or as you are not like able to vote here, so it's not so huge, or it's just not so important.
Yeah, if I just may add, we are usually advocating for the members of European Parliament. So I think the European climate movement is very strong, and it's getting better. But still, there's a lot of room. There's a big room for improvement. So what we are trying to do is to really create the pressure. And sometimes we are sending the letters, or we are doing the petitions, and then it's upon them if they hear us. But we have the feeling that we are successfully doing the pressure, and we do what we could. So sometimes they not hear us. We have also good examples. For example, when we were we were advocating for an Arctic policy, because the European Union was revisioning the Arctic policy, and we wanted to involve and include the opinions of young people. And we got lucky because the EU Arctic ambassador, who is from the external service, heard us and had a meeting with us and incorporated our voices in the policy recommendations. So that wasn't a lucky example, but then there are a lot of examples when they don't hear. So the pressure needs to be still done. And as Katrina says, it varies from government to government, from country to country, because in the end we are all people, and if they don't care, they don't care. But we are trying our best.
Great. Thank you all so much. I think that's going to go ahead and conclude this portion of the webinar. But I just wanted to thank you all so much for participating, for your time and your expertise. I think I can speak for everyone when I say it was truly great to hear your voice and your perspectives on this topic. We really can't thank you enough for being here today. And we look forward to continuing to collaborate with you all in the future. So we'll now go ahead to go into breakout sessions. In a moment, Miguel will share on the screen some information on exactly how to do that. But before that, I wanted to take a moment to remind everyone of our next webinar at the end of May, which I believe will be on greening practices in health systems. So we really hope that you will all join us again. And again, these will all be, this session and the previous sessions are up on our YouTube channel. So we would love if you all can disseminate it through your organizations and networks, and for those who weren't able to be here today. So we'll send that link out again. But for now, I'll just hand it over to Miguel. Just thank you once more to our youth participants for a really great discussion. Miguel?
Great.